as far as like the loot system, obviously it's redesigned. It's always sort of been one of those big sticking points for fans, like either they like it or don't. How did you go about doing the redesign for drops and other upgrades?
So there was a philosophical shift between the release of Diablo III, and a lot of it happened in the patches that came after it. The philosophy shift is pretty simple. We called it internally, we called it endgame for everyone. And games like this, they're not just about your main story experience. Diablo is definitely not just you play, 15, 20 hours of X 1 through 4, and then you're done the game. That's true for some people, but it's definitely not designed for that to be the end of anything. So when we look at the loot system and the replayability about it, I think that some of the replayability stuff we did with it, in this case, just how random the items were, I think that it was too rough of an approach. It was too broad. So it was anything, any stat can go in anything. So you could be a demon hunter. Your primary stats is for a demon hunter are your dexterity and your vitality, your ability to take damage, and your ability to do damage is based on your dexterity. You could have a quiver, which is a demon hunter only weapon, and in a perfectly random system, that would roll a high strength thing, completely useless to a demon hunter. So that item essentially could only be broken down and used for crafting. I think that approach essentially, that was too rough. It was too binary. It was either good or it wasn't. We wanted to find something more subtle. We wanted to find something where we sanded the rough edges off of the randomness, and we used the randomness to strengthen the game, not to limit replayability by just having people have to play a lot more. We wanted randomness to equal choice, if that makes sense, as opposed to randomness equal randomness. It's maybe weird. I mean, we're all stuck in these conversations all day, every day, so it's a little bit hard to describe what role randomness plays in the item game. But suffice to say, we've cut the rough edges off of it, so that when quivers have a very low chance of dropping anything with strength. So we didn't make it so quivers are always awesome for a demon hunter. We didn't get rid of it completely. We just added something called a smart drop system, so that when you roll something for your class, it's much more likely to be good for the class that you have. And that's, a bunch of other things we did there. We're all to do the same intent, which was make randomness work for the player instead of against him. So you have items where in Diablo 3 it was all just about the most stats. It's either got the best DPS or it doesn't. Well, now it's a little more complicated than that, but in a good way. You can have an item that's got high DPS, but it has an affix where it gives plus X% damage to one of your specific skills. So let's say you're a barbarian, it's got great strength on this hammer, but it also gives you plus 10% damage to your earthquake skill. If you were using a whirlwind barbarian and you didn't have earthquake on your bar, that extra 10% boost, that's going to make you want to use earthquake, and that can stack across different things. In the meantime, as you're trying to build your earthquake set, you're starting to find plus X damage to hammer the ancients, and all of a sudden you're tempted to try something else. So through the item system and through those raw numbers of I want to do more damage or I want to be able to take more damage, we're also encouraging people to explore their skill sets a lot more widely. So those sort of things, which are not about direct damage anymore, that's us learning to be more subtle and use randomness to improve choice instead of randomness to improve replayability, in sort of a brute way. Again, that was a very long answer. Do you want more bullet points here?
No. I'm just catching up with the typing. But actually, that's good because, obviously it's a pretty important topic because I'm one of those guys who thought it was a bit ironic that I actually had a lot more fun playing the console versions than I did when I originally first played the game. And so, but at the same time, even people I knew who were critical of the game are really looking forward to the changes as far as the drop systems and all that stuff.
Internally we called the console Loot 1.5 because they basically, there was an advantage. Ideally, the game can come out for every type of player all at the same time. Because all that stuff got started later and we stole all their staff to ship the PC version, we're very focused on shipping whatever's in front of us. Anyway, that said, there was an advantage in that the console, we were able to try some stuff, learn some new things, and it'll make Reaper better as well. And Reaper coming out before the Ultimate Evil Edition, which is the Reaper of Souls version of the game on consoles later, same thing. They're going to get improvements that we will learn as well. So that was a huge advantage to us.
No one can stop death.